Hello, all you friends, you neighbors, you family, citizens of the world. I'm Michael James here in Chicago, and we're bringing you another edition of the Live from the Heartland show. This one would be number 127 since the pandemic began. It's for the week of 11/19. We're broadcast on Saturday morning, the 19th, on our home base, WLUW 88.7. And we are recording, just so you know, a couple days early on the 16th. For the 19th. So here we go. We're going to start off with a good thing that happened in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, 6 weeks before taking power. Brazilian President-elect Luiz Ignacio Lula da Silva on Wednesday told cheering crowds at the UN climate conference that he would crack down on illegal deforestation in the Amazon, reinitiate relationships with countries that finance forest protection efforts, and push to host an upcoming World Climate Summit in the rainforest. Yay, Lula. Another good thing I just read in The Guardian, they report that the Mormon Church has voiced support for the Senate bill to protect gay marriage. Good move. An observation I had this week was leading up to the election, it was all doom and gloom, particularly the stock market for the Democrats. But alas, a few days after the election, there was a report. The market went wild. It went up based on that report that appears to say that the depression, the recession is in decline. And it just occurs to me that, there's a collusion between large corporations and the media to sow seeds and nurture disinformation and misinformation. Okay, that's my take on that. Some more good news is the Republicans are still waiting on to secure the House. The Democrats have secured the Senate. And another thing that I'm going to point out here is that among many things on the legal front, there was a student loan setback with a federal judge putting it on hold. He was a Trump appointee. And I read today that in Alternate, it said the headline was clearly no jurisdiction. Constitutional law expert rips Trump judge's ruling on Biden's student debt relief. So we'll see how that goes. We're all for debt relief for all Americans and all people in the world. In case you missed last week, we had Don Rose with a lot of great election analysis and projections. And we had Johnny Bergen, who is one hell of a performer. Those interviews can be seen at youtube.com/heartlandmedia/videos. And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these videos that you could watch if you so desire. Okay, things to look out for or be aware of. Herschel Walker, who is running for the Senate seat in Georgia, he came out advocating for gas-guzzling cars. Another thing I'd like to point out, this was reported about a week ago, 4 U.S. Supreme Court justices attended the black tie gala dinner for the Federalist Society. It's the first time the Federalist Society got together since the overturning of Roe versus Wade. And Mark Sherman of the Associated Press reports Alito, Barrett, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh were in attendance at the group's 40th anniversary celebration. And he noted that is 4/5 of the majority of the court that overturned Roe. Controversial Justice Clarence Thomas was the 5th. He wasn't there. 3 of the 4 justices in attendance were nominated by Trump. And we are learning more and more about Thomas's wife all the time and her right-wing activities. So just be aware of the Supreme Court and how it's not really acting in the interest of the people. A little more news here. World population has reached 8 billion as of November 15, 2022. That's a lot of people. On a sadder note, our hearts go out to the 3 football players, their family and friends who were killed at the University of Virginia this week. And we are also disappointed to hear that the Russians sent Lonnie Grenier off to a Russian prison camp. We will keep you posted on that. And that's our sports report for today. I'm going to read something that I looked up. Today, I look up every week now what happened on the day we broadcast this on WLUW, what happened on that day in history. And it just so happens that November 19th, 1863, was the Gettysburg Address by Abraham Lincoln. He delivered a short speech at the close of ceremonies dedicating the battlefield cemetery at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Honoring a request to offer a few remarks, Lincoln memorialized the Union dead and highlighted the redemptive power of their sacrifice. And he said, here we go, 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that the nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do so. He goes on a little bit more, but that caught my attention. I like the part about all men are created equal. I think that people in this country should remember that. And I do want to say that my great-grandfather was wounded at Gettysburg, and his wife came down and brought some cookies and whatever they were doing while they took a little break. The bullet was unlodged from his body. Okay. Some good news here in Chicago, and we'll end up with this, is the Workers' Rights Bill has passed in Illinois and will be part of the Illinois Constitution. And one last thing, in the 49th Ward, Jarvis Square, there is now an open mic called the Jarvis Square Open Mic at the Jarvis Square Tavern. It's every Wednesday, 8 to 10. That's 1502 West Jarvis. So all of you people who are missing the open mic at the Heartland, at the No Exit Cafe, etc., there's a new one up there in Jarvis Square. Okay, we're going to take a little short break and we'll be right back. I know our first guest is ready and waiting, eager to go. It's David Orr, and he's going to give us his take on the election, elections to come, and anything else he cares to talk about. We'll be right back with more Live from the Heartland here on the left end of your dial, 88.7 WLUW.org. Okay, well, we're back with more Live from the Heartland. We're recording on the 16th. This is for broadcast and streaming on the 19th of November in the year 2022. I'm Michael James, your host for this edition of the Live from the Heartland, and I'm bringing on someone who comes on and shares a lot of knowledge. He's done a lot of great work. He used to be the biggest vote getter in the county. The one, the only, David Orr. Good morning to you, brother.
Thank you, Michael. I get a kick out of looking at us two old farts. Anyway,
say that on the air. Okay, I don't know who's older. I'm a lot older than you.
Not a lot, young man.
I don't know. I'm going to be 81. How about you?
I'm 78, so I'm right.
You're a kid. Right. Okay. All right. Well, I brought you on because I thought each week we had Clem Balanoff on. We had Don Rose on next week. We've got Dick Simpson coming on. And, you know, these elections, it took years building up to it. We had them. And I thought you'd be a good guy to give us your take on where we're at, where we're going, what's going on. So how about starting off? You may as well start off with the Supreme Court, because that's the first thing you mentioned, and they played a big role in this election.
Yeah, in my view, and I think we pretty much all agree now, the abortion or reproductive rights was really critical, more critical than a lot of the media was giving it initially. What I find ironical is the right-wing strategy. I'm talking about the Koch brothers we've been working on for 30 years and some other Pulitzer Prize people behind the scenes. Their goal to make sure the rich never got hassled by Democrats was to make sure even if the Dems could elect a president, they couldn't do anything. And they're getting closer and closer to that goal. And so I think they were a little cocky with the right-wing craziness around abortion. And so their strategy was, okay, the Supreme Court is not taking a position on this. That's up to state rights. Voting, suppression, now that's up to state rights. Redistricting, all those are federal issues. It should be. It's ridiculous to talk about elections as only local. But so I think for whatever reasons, they went too far and they set off a storm, which is great for us. I mean, I had so much to do, I think, with the victory. So I'm just, at least the one Koch brother still alive. I hope he's realizing what fools they were.
What's your sense of the Supreme Court and its future? I saw something, I think, on some station where they said it didn't look like anyone would be dying or retiring while Biden was still in. Any sense of that? Anyone who might have a secret ailment that will take them out of the picture?
No, and I don't mean to be facetious here, but 2 of the 5 men on our Supreme Court are charged with serious women abuse. I don't know what word rape or not, but serious abuse. Both got away with it. They're both on the highest court in our land. I don't say that, but I think we should hold the Supreme Court in reverence. Anyone who studies history, most of the history has been terrible. There's been good decisions here now and then. Brown versus Board of Education. But over the years, remember, they kept up slavery and or similar racial stuff all the way up to 1954. We could go on and on. So the problem is, unless something dramatic happens, we're probably not going to be doing a lot about the court. But since the court is very political, okay, at some point, some of those folks, maybe Roberts, not most of them, they don't really care about public opinion. But the more we do, and I think this election tells us a little bit how to do that, the more we do, it might increase the chances that the court might be a little nervous about their right-wing extremism. But otherwise, no, it doesn't look good, although with the Senate that the Democrats won, they can push in a lot of at least good other court people.
Well, that'd be great because it's really, I used to really trust the Supreme Court, root for them, think that we were going to get a good decision, but it's been rough. And you started out by saying we should have some reverence for the Supreme Court, and unfortunately we don't.
I maybe walk that back. I think we'll be careful. Again, for most of the history, they haven't done much good. Okay. Now, there's been some good things over the years that were usually forced by the political hand. So that's what I'm saying. We need to keep that up, because it's going to be really tough with the court.
All right, let's move along and talk about the Democrats. I never felt that we were in as much trouble as they were saying. I couldn't believe that the American people would be as bad as it was projected. I think people came around a lot. They divided their votes in some ways. Who knows what's moving people? What's your take on the Democrats, how we got to where we're at, and where we want to go and what we got to do?
Well, yes, it is important that there wasn't the big sweep. And it's important to think of some of the reasons, why not? We talked about the abortion. I think what Democrats in general did, probably best exemplified is in Michigan, where they connected freedom. So in other words, the freedom to vote, the freedom to reproductive rights, and they did really, really well in Michigan. And so I think the extremism, it's partly they lost it, okay? It's not so much we won it. They lost it by the craziness being the most obvious thing, like Pelosi. The notion that even Trump and senators and congressmen all make fun of Nancy Pelosi's husband being almost killed by some crazy guy with a hammer.
I think that's more serious too than we've been told.
So, but the point is their extremism bottomed out. So we have a chance. We have a chance now, even if they take the House by a few votes, and we have the Senate, whether it's 50-50 or hopefully one more. But my message, though, to move on is, and one of our problems is the Democrats, I think in our lifetime, Michael, we've seen how they're so desirous of the money. And, politicians need money. It's hard to run these campaigns with billionaires throwing so much in there. But I think too often we lose because even though as a party, the Democrats generally do 100 times better than Republicans on working family issues. But when it comes to campaigns, we don't emphasize it. because we're afraid of the big corporate dollars. I mean, years ago when Virginia lost, and not too long ago with this new right-wing Republican who's a very attractive guy and will be a presidential candidate soon, we didn't emphasize that in Virginia, the Democrats had led to somewhere around 200,000 people being put on Medicare and all the things they did to help working people. And why didn't we do that? Because we played up Trump too much. We didn't want to confront the people that give the big money. And I think that's a losing strategy in the long run. So I think the Democrats have to keep pushing this stuff, keep pushing the minimum wage. There's so many things for working people that get screwed every day, and the government should be on their side. So that's one big thing I think could overcome the structural deficit we have. One, the Supreme Court, and two, the idiotic notion we're a democracy. All I mean by that is you can't be a democracy if your most important elected body is decided not by population, but by states. And I know people think, well, that's not going to change, but it's important to understand that. I'm not sure what the number is. I heard someone recently, 22% of the Senate can block any major reform proposal. Because, we all know what we're talking about. So if, California with 40 million people has 2 U.S. senators, and Utah with a little over 1 million has 2, that's why we're in the pickle we're in. The good news is most of the issues, as we know, whether it's reproductive rights, whether it's the push to have pharmacy, some controls over the ripoffs from pharmacy, gun control, we go on and on. Most of the public supports the issues that we call more liberal or progressive. But these structural deficits, and partly because of the U.S. Senate, it's hard to overcome. So that's why I do think that economic message is too bad in some ways what happened in Ohio. Because there, the candidate for U.S. Senate, I think did a really good job pushing that over and over again.
Yeah, I thought he did better, to be honest.
Well, he didn't get any really help from the
Right.
National Democrats, at least not enough. So I think there's some good future. The key to this one, though, is not so much what the polls showed or didn't show. They were off in many ways. It's turnout. Turnout is a whole game. If Trump can get a lot of crazy, upset, nervous white people, they win. If we can get more like we did, young people wait till 2 o'clock in the morning in some places to vote, women coming out in great numbers. How do we sustain that? That is the future, one way or the other.
Well, let me even ask, you talked about the medical advances that Virginia voted through for Medicare, and there were a lot of things that Biden got through, good things that the Democrats did. And I don't know how people get the message about those, though. I'm not sure who's watching TV. The kids aren't watching the TV, Where do people learn about what the Democrats have done? I mean, I saw one commentator saying the Democrats really got to take credit for this election, really pump it up that we won it, and talk about those things that we do. How do we get that message out to more people?
Well, one, we need to be fighting for a better media. Okay. And secondly, the party, like I say, they don't emphasize all these things because they're worried about the corporate money. You should be bragging about and when the Republicans attack on the inflation, you say, what's important about either inflation or the economy? Whether people getting improvements in wages. Almost all the wage increases in the last several years are all due to Democrats and minimum wage increases. Or you go to other things where the Democrats constantly push for to end wage theft, which affects millions of people across this country in more dramatic ways than people realize, or sick leave. There's just lots and lots of Americans do not have any sick leave. And I love talking about how, these major big chicken factories, very powerful ones, they come in, and I've seen some of the testimony where they start asking about, well, you have sick time for your workers, don't you? And they say, well, no. And then your image in your mind is, okay, these people cutting up all these chickens, and they got to go to work sick because they don't make that much money, and they're sneezing all over the chicken you're going to get. And we wonder why people get sick. It's that kind of thing. Take that message, because I think that's a winning message. There's Republicans, too, that would support these kinds of things. So I guess my summary there is we got to keep up that economic message. We got to find ways to make people want to vote, although I think we did a good job, because people who experience that, who see, wow, we won, we did something. There's, lots of other things, but
Well, that's good.
upbeat at the moment.
Well, we're going to have another election in a couple of years. And for those of us here at home in Chicago, we're going to have an election in February. So I'm going to tack over that way and ask you to talk about the coming election and maybe a comment on the mayoral race, which now has Chewy in the run. That's Chewy Garcia, our old buddy. And also, I know you want to share with some information about the Board of Review here in Chicago. So take it away, David Orr.
Where we start? Oh, I thought you were leading to a commercial or something. But let me just.
The whole thing is a commercial.
Okay, let me jump ship just for a moment onto the Board of Review. Sometimes the most significant gains we make, it's hard. People don't understand them, and they don't understand them because smart politicians, unfortunately, like Madigan, devise these fantastic schemes that puts enormous amounts of money in their pockets. And I don't just mean personally, but I mean like in the party pockets. And people can never understand who to blame. Okay, one of the things that I've been working on with good government, and I want to keep working on, is like I call tax fairness, tax justice. Okay, I think there's a future there. But Madigan and others created this system. First of all, he put Barrios in the Board of Review. You've got the assessor's office, right, which determines assessments and gets a lot of noise. Okay. So step number one is we were able to beat Barrios, who had been at the Board of Review and then went to become the assessor. Amazing, amazing victory. Okay. But the way this was all devised by Madigan and others, you had a couple bites at the apple. You could either, win with your clout and money, a decrease in basically your property taxes through your lowered assessments from the assessor's office. And if you didn't like you got there, you go to the Board of Review. The Board of Review is 3 people elected countywide. Most people don't know anything about them. But so another bite at the apple besides Fritz's victory, both 4 years ago and this last time when he had serious right-wing opposition, was the Board of Review. We elected this young woman and took Michael Carbonacci's spot. Michael Carbonacci was someone that Madigan had determined to be moving way up. And that's when he ran for, county clerk, not county clerk, but circuit court clerk. But he failed at that. Nice enough guy, but he was playing ball with Barrios and others. And I know there's a lot of news in the last couple of days. The Board of Review is still not a reformist institution, but with Samantha Steele joining it, that's where we could make a lot of progress. But what they did is Fritz had done all this stuff, Fritz Kagi, in which if the assessments that he did stayed, the vast majority of taxpayers in Cook County would have had less taxes to pay. But the Board of Review came in with their information just in the last few days and basically changed all that by giving lots of big commercial breaks like Trump Tower breaks. Now, when they give tens of millions of dollars in breaks to big commercial downtown, the rest of us pay it. Okay. Again, it's not that complicated, but people don't understand who to blame, which is exactly why Madigan created what we did. So anyway, we're making some good attacks there. And yesterday, all the papers were critical. The Sun-Times did a nice editorial. Today's Tribune attacked the Board of Review. Cranes did a good job. So we have a possibility. We cracked that nut, and we can make amazing advances in fairness to taxpayers.
Well, that's good. And I was looking forward to my next tax bill because I thought it was going to be significantly lower, but I'm still waiting and it might be higher. David, we're running out of time. Do you have any real, just a minute on the coming race? Are we going to get more progressives when we have the election in Chicago? Are we going to get a different mayor? You got any take on this?
Well, not this is significant. We're going to get new people. Funny, the word progressive is so out of, it means so many things to different people. I mean, there's some people that consider themselves the most progressive who work with Barrios and Madigan and attack Fritz. And so the label doesn't mean a lot. Okay. There's a lot of people consider them way left, but like I say, they play all the games and so forth. So I do think we're going to get some good people. But the city council is still going to be a problem. The city council is still not a very good lot, period. But I do think we can get some that are better than what are there now. The mayor stuff is totally up in the air. Because Chewy has a very good chance of both getting the runoff and winning it.
Yeah.
People probably shouldn't sell the mayor too short because, there's still some polls that have her kind of hanging in there. The question is, who gets in the runoff? One of the things that I'm concerned about is because it's a very racial game in Chicago, unfortunately, there's only one white candidate, and that's Paul Vallis. And Paul's never been a fan of mine, and he's jumping to some of the right-wing stuff around police and other things. So keep this in mind. And it's probably dangerous to say this on the air, but if Harold was alive today, I guarantee you what he would say about all the African Americans running for office. He said, "What the F are you guys doing? Are you nuts? You want to end any possibility of a black mayor?" To put it kind of bluntly. Well, it's kind of crazy. Now, it may change. Brandon Johnson may pick up some with some of the big endorsements, although Brandon doesn't do himself any favors when he acts like he's the anointed progressive and he's the chosen one. And the CTU, kind of beats people up to get there. So I think he's an attractive guy, smart guy, but he needs to don't use the same tactics the CTU used if you want to be able to move up. What I'm getting at, though, is that some of the African-American candidates will fade. Willie Wilson will stay in there, but he won't be mayor. So what the question I'm pointing out here is if Chewy's able to pick up a sizable bunch, which I think he will, it's possible no African-American could get in the runoff. Okay, if they divided up so much and Lori didn't do too well, you might have your runoff between, Chewy and Paul Vallis, which I hope Chewy would win, but that's a little tricky now. So,
well, David, we're going to have you back. We'll be talking, over the next 2 months, we'll be talking a lot about our local race here. I want to thank you for joining us on Live from the Heartland, and I'll see you in the neighborhood. Who knows? Later today, maybe tomorrow, but not too far off.
Are you still going to be showing your photos on Saturdays?
The Sundays I've been doing it, but it's getting too cold out there. I'm reorganizing my basement so people get a hold of me. They want to talk to me about my photography. Thanks for coming on, brother.
You bet, Mike.
I'll see you. Hey, everybody, we're going to take a very short musical break, and we'll be back with our alderwoman in the 49th Ward, another incomparable person from up in this neighborhood, Maria Hadden. Stay tuned here on WLUW 88.7, WLUW.org. Hey, we're back. I'm Michael James, back with more Live from the Heartland for the week of November 19th. And I'm really honored now, once again, to have another incomparable person who lives up in the 49th Ward. It would be our Alderwoman Maria Hadden, who is just out of a city council meeting and somewhere parked alongside the road. Good afternoon, Maria.
Good afternoon. You're catching me halfway home, so I'm at Montrose now.
Oh, good. Well, that's my old neighborhood, Uptown. I love it almost as much as Rogers Park, but not quite. Anyhow, Maria, you've been in city council. There was a lot of attention on social media and other places about a meeting that you were having in the city council where you did not get a quorum to go forward on a project around the homelessness situation. Why don't you fill our listeners, our viewers, your constituents, and others in on what's going on with you, the city council, and the homelessness in Chicago?
Sure. And thanks, Michael. So we're seeing, more and more people experiencing homelessness. We've been seeing a real increase in this over the last year. This has been, services for people to help them stay in their homes, to help them, with wraparound services to address barriers to being housed, and then, of course, housing people. The funding that the city has had for this traditionally is very low funding, and we don't have a dedicated funding source, right? So there's not like a lot of money that comes from other governmental agencies either. What we have been able to do with CARES funds and ARPA funds and COVID relief dollars, right? The Chicago Recovery Plan, we've devoted $200 million to fight homelessness. And it's led to some really great opportunities for different programs, like a housing first approach, having permanent supportive housing, doing rapid rehousing events. We have our third rapid rehousing event happening at Tui Park this week, where we'll have another 20 units of housing, making it, we'll be up to 84 people that we've been able to house in the last year, just in Rogers Park alone. And these types of programs and the wraparound services given to people to help with employment, to help with mental health or physical health services, to help with substance abuse counseling, right? All of these things have been possible because of the federal funds. I've been working with the Bring Chicago Home Coalition, who for years have been pushing to an effort to increase this one-time sales tax and our real estate transfer tax, to increase it, to make sure that we could provide a dedicated source of funding for homelessness prevention services that would come from the sale of luxury real estate. So, candidate Lightfoot in 2019 was a big supporter of this, worked with the coalition, came into office. They had a falling out, a disagreement on how they wanted to use the funds. And the issue just has stood still since 2019. So myself, many other members of the Chicago Progressive Reform Caucus and Council have been working on this. Most closely recently, it's been with Alderman Matt Martin and the coalition. And we were trying to go around the state piece where we haven't had much luck, and to put a ballot measure on the municipal ballot so that Chicago voters on the February 28th municipal ballot could decide, should we increase the real estate transfer tax to create about $168 million is what we estimate in dedicated funds in order to combat homelessness in our city. So it's a convoluted path to get to be able to make this change on our own without the state's help. But we can use our home rule authority to do it, but only if we meet certain requirements. So one of those requirements was what we were trying to meet this Monday, and that was to have a public hearing. So we called a special city council meeting. We needed just a quorum of alder people to show up to the special city council meeting in order to convene the meeting, and then to let public comment happen. So people could talk about whether they supported this, whether they were against it, and all the things in between. And so this is a pretty low barrier for city council members to show up. We called the meeting at 9 a.m. People had multiple weeks to know. And we had enough commitments of people that both myself, my colleagues, and the coalition had called, people who said and promised that they would be there because they knew it was just a hearing. And there's not a city council member that I've talked to yet that doesn't agree that homelessness is an issue, right? Every ward is experiencing this, and we need some solutions to it. Those solutions cost money. But over the weekend, some people were called, some people were encouraged not to come, some people were told that they were going to be having to take a vote, and then other things that deterred them from showing. And so we only had 14 people at 9 a.m. We managed to get a recess, even though the mayor wanted to adjourn the meeting. We managed to get a recess until 11:30, when we knew, because of Finance Committee, that we would have enough alder people like right there and able to meet our quorum. And so in a pretty dramatic playing out of events, we ended up with 25 alder people who showed up at 11:30 for quorum, and several alder people who were present and just stayed in the hallway, just stayed in the next room, and refused to come in to be counted for quorum. So it was disappointing. I think the city should be disappointed in city council. The mayor wasn't there for the reconvening. So Alderman Riley chaired, but if the mayor had even been there, we would have been at quorum and we would have been able to have the public hearing. So not meeting this requirement and running out of time, this really kind of kills the legislative path that we've got for this ballot cycle coming up for the municipal general. But it doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to work on this issue, because whether you agree that we should increase the real estate transfer tax or not, we still need to come up with about $150 to $200 million a year in order to really adequately tackle the issue of homelessness in our city.
Well, this is really too bad. Maria Hadden, can you give us a hint maybe why you think the mayor has reversed her position from when she was a candidate and making alliances with people to now that she's in power, so to speak? And kind of pissing off not only the police, but the progressives. Why do you think she threw into the ring when she's going to have a challenge in the race from Chewy and others, that she would put this on the table, kind of an anti-homelessness reformation that we all kind of would love to have happen?
Yeah. It's my understanding that at least in 2019, the big point of disagreement, after she committed to this, the big point of disagreement was she didn't want all of the new revenue generated to go to homelessness prevention services. Now, when we talk about this, it's a pretty wide range of things, right? That would fund different departments. It's youth outreach, right? Because about a third of our residents experiencing homelessness are young people. It's mental health care. It's rental assistance. It's, creating housing and paying for housing. It's social services. But in 2019, apparently, she didn't want 100% of the revenue to go to homelessness prevention. She wanted it to be open so that she could use the funds for other things like, filling our budget deficit. And that was what I understand the big point of disagreement was, the break between her and this coalition, the Bring Chicago Home Coalition. I don't know why she hasn't come back to it. We've brought it up, the Chicago Progressive Caucus, we've brought it up every budget cycle as a way to get progressive revenue, one of the very few routes that we've got. And if we could just come together as a city council and the mayor on this, we could have a solution, especially when we've been seeing over this last year, look at the way real estate prices have been, right? Like we have left possible revenue on the table. And right now, a lot of the reasoning that we hear from the administration is we're funding homelessness prevention like never before, which is true, but we're going to run out of these federal funds, right? And so it's difficult to understand why we're only thinking about the next 6 months, right? Instead of thinking about the next 2 or 3 years. But I imagine at least the spin that we've heard from her and her allies is that this is a property tax increase. And of course, that scares everybody off at a time when property tax bills are coming out, when property taxes have gone up. And so I think that's important for kind of your viewers and listeners to know that it's not a property tax increase. It's a sales tax and an increase on an existing sales tax on luxury property sales. So I look forward to continuing to work with colleagues and maybe some of our state partners and finding a real solution to this and encourage other folks. Like this is one of those things where we all agree on the problem. And there's a lot of agreement on the amount of money we need to adequately address it. And so to have folks, we're bringing a solution that's been well vetted, that had been previously supported, that we've spent years on, and to just not have any willingness to compromise has been really, really challenging. So I don't understand it myself, Michael.
Well, we're going to be watching it close. It's kind of a double blow in favor of the rich on this show today. You're talking about the failure to get through this transfer tax to fund the great needs around the homelessness question, not only in our ward, but throughout the city. And David Orr talked a little bit earlier about the Board of Review coming in and reversing Fritz Cahey's the lower taxes on homeowners, higher taxes on rich residential places. So it's not a great day for the little guys and girls today.
No, they keep shifting the burden. On working class people and poor people. And I don't know why people insist on making these changes, because they're breaking us, right? You can't maintain this system with people who can't pay out, right? You can't get blood from a turnip.
No, you can't. Or a parsnip or a rutabaga. Anyhow, Maria Hadden, it's great to have you on. I'm going to just throw one last question at you. It's something we'll probably be hitting you up with over time. Where are you at on the mayor's race? You got any insights, any projections, anyone you want to come out for?
Not at this time. So, 49th Ward, like their independent alder people. And so I've, kind of committed to working with Network 49, our independent political organization. I know that they intend to have a thorough endorsement process kind of after the ballot is set. So I'll be looking to them to kind of see where the ward wants to go. And right now, there's plenty of mayoral time to come. But right now, I got to focus on my own race. I'm filing petitions on Monday.
I turned in a few names. I don't know if you need more. Maria Hadden, we love you and we love the work you've been doing. And we want to thank you for taking time out of your very busy day on your way home to beautiful Rogers Park from downtown Chicago. And we will see you in the neighborhood probably before we see you anywhere else. Thanks again.
Sure. Thank you, Michael.
Okay, you are listening to Live from the Heartland, and we are here for a few more minutes. I think Lynn Orman, who booked some great musical talent for this show, is coming on to give us a little report on what's going on musically around town. So we're going to take a short musical break. We'll be right back with more Live from the Heartland. We're back with more Live from the Heartland, and this was once a tequila bottle, but now it's great water from the Great Lake, Michigan. Nurturing myself when I get ready to talk to our wonderful music producer, Lynn Orman Weiss, who has her own show on a sister station, WNUR. She can tell us about that, but Lynn is going to give us a little musical report, what's going on around town, what people might want to know, some things coming up. So let's take it away. Hello, Lynn Orman Weiss.
Hey, Michael. I thought that was tequila, actually, either that or vodka. I'm like, what's in that bottle, Michael?
No, it's just water.
Anyway, I'm hoping I'm going to see you tomorrow night at the Skokie Theater because Johnny Bergen is going to be there.
Yeah, for those who are just tuning in, we had Johnny Bergen, used to be Rockin' Johnny Bergen. He's coming to town. He'll be at the Skokie Theater, the day after we record this, 2 days before it's on air. So you'll be able to see it at youtube.com/heartlandmedia/videos. But we got other stuff to talk about. What else you got?
We do. It has been a whirlwind of a week in music. And yesterday was the Grammy announcements. And the good news about that is a ton of indie artists and Chicago artists have been nominated. So I'm really excited to report a lot of our guests who have been on with us have been nominated. Jim Ginsburg is Producer of the Year in Classical for his label Sade. And I think he has about 5 nominations. Jim always has a lot of nominations. And of course, that's the son of Ruth Ginsburg, our beloved Ruth Ginsburg.
Oh, and we did have him on the show.
We did.
So if someone goes to youtube.com/Heartland videos and types in Ginsburg, they'll probably find our interview with him.
It's really great, coming out of Chicago and chamber music and all of the great Will Liverman. There's some really great artists that are on his label, which is right just south of Rogers Park in Edgewater, I believe. And then
a neighboring ward.
Yep. Yeah, whose ward is that?
That would be in the 48th ward, which was Harry Osterman. It's going to be someone new.
Right. Wow. Well, gosh, really, we're just on the heels of this election. I have actually been asked to produce a Blues for Blues in Atlanta for Warnock.
Oh, good.
So
maybe we'll go to Atlanta.
I know, right? We've use all the help we can get. And there's some incredible music and musicians out there. And so I've been in conversation. That's what I've been doing for the last 48 hours.
I wondered where you were.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Between that and the Grammy announcements yesterday, Shamika Copeland is the only female. I don't think we've had her on. We're going to have her on. She's quite an extraordinary musician. She is Johnny Copeland's daughter, one of the daughters of the blues. She's been singing since she's 12. And she is nominated for Done, Come Too Far, and it's her 5th nomination. John Hahn and Kimbrough, I forgot his first name, but he's extraordinary. Charlie Musselwhite was nominated for Mississippi Sun, Taj Mahal, and of course, our very own Buddy Guy is nominated. This will be his if he wins, it'll be his 9th win. And out of Wilmette, a young musician I've known for a while, her name is Wendy Morgan, And she has a nomination in children's music, which, I want to say Chicago has pioneered the children's category because of Ella Jenkins, who, thank God, is, still with us. And I get to talk to every Friday. But for all of our listeners out there, because we had Ella at the Heartland Cafe a number of times, and she is doing well. She is 98 years old. And, all I have to do is get on a Zoom with her and sing Besame Mucho or Shabbat Shalom, or you'll sing a song. And we sang Cab Calloway songs the other day. So she is doing Heidi, Heidi, Heidi Ho. She is my hero, really. But anyway, this album is called Into the Little Blue House with Wendy Morgan. And it's featuring Billy Branch, and Mike Wheeler and his little nephew Chico are in it. And it's really, Dave Spector is in it, and promises to be a good contender for the children's category. So
Nice.
That's pretty exciting. And again, I said Shamika is the only woman in the blues category. How that happened. There were a lot of great releases this year. Let's see, what else is going on? Win Knoll, who you had on.
Yeah, a few weeks ago. We know what was the name of the blues?
The Rockin' Souls.
The Rockin' Souls. Yeah,
Yeah.
I liked Win Knoll. She was a good interview. The music was great.
Well,
She won something.
the judges liked her too a lot. Out of, I think there were 8 bands, and she walked away with winning the challenge for best band, and she's going to be going to Memphis.
Well, tell
And,
us what this is not, before you were talking about the Grammys. This is
I was
not,
talking about the Grammys.
she's got a nomination from the Grammys?
No, this not yet,
Okay.
but I see that coming. She is an extraordinary songwriter, and maybe we can pot up that one song that we have a video of, Drinking Buddy. It's really great.
When I'm asking you, what is the award from? What did she win?
The award, well, she won the challenge for Windy City Blues Society. She will go on to compete with 299 other bands from across the world in Memphis on January 25th.
What is that event called?
It's called the IBC, the International Blues Challenge.
Okay,
on
that's what I'm
Memphis.
after.
Yes, and people come from all over the world, and we're really happy that she's representing Chicago,
Win Knoll.
which is great. Yeah,
Win
and she'll
Knoll
be
and the Rockin' Souls.
and the Rockin' Souls on November 19th at the Old Town School of Folk Music. If you haven't gotten your tickets yet, I think there's a wait list for Patti Smith. Patti Smith is going to be at the Old Town School of Folk Music. And then right after that is Erwin Helfer. And they're going to be celebrating his birthday. And the Sirens Music label, which is Steve Dolan's label, also has a number of gospel acts. And that should be a really great show at the Old Town School of Folk Music, too. And then Patti Smith will be speaking at the Humanities Festival on Sunday on the 20th. So there's a lot going on. I could
So
just.
Patti Smith is on the 19th, which is the day this first gets broadcast.
That's right.
Saturday. She's playing there Saturday night. And then Sunday, she's doing another event over there. So if you're listening on the radio, which is the first way to get this, unless you get the early announcement on Friday night.
Which is great.
You could go see Patti Smith over at the Old Town School.
Absolutely.
What else you got, Lynn? Any other shows coming up that people should know about or musicians to take note of?
Well, there's a lot of musicians to take note of. I know that Space in Evanston, we should go see this, Michael. And Hal, your kids would probably love her. Her name is Danielle Giray. I love her. She's an indie artist, just a phenomenal singer-songwriter. And I think she's somebody to watch, somebody that's going to be really hot. The indie, kind of that indies music genre has become pretty significant. I mean, I love Joni Mitchell and all of my artists who are my heroes. There's a lot of young young women artists out there who are really up and coming that I really like a lot.
Well, this has been great, Lynn. And speaking of up and coming artists, this not so much a musician, but a painter. I noticed that you have behind you Nicholas Barron's picture. And just tell us a little bit about Nicholas one more time.
There we go.
He's
Nicholas
a Rogers Park
Barron
guy. And we've had him on the show a lot of times. And he has a studio not too far from where I'm sitting right now. And I'm on my way over there in the next few days to check him out.
Good. Well, it's not summer anymore. I mean, he's had the opportunity he's been painting in his alley. Now we're talking about Sheridan and it's not Juneway Terrace. Is it Juneway?
Yeah, it is. It's right there at the curve.
On the curve. And it is just, he is quite extraordinary. He's got probably about 600 paintings in his studio. Many of them are like this. Oh, and he did a painting during COVID of George Floyd that is going to be hanging in a new exhibit that will be at the Field Museum. So the Field Museum is curating a show on what artists were doing during COVID. And Nicholas did this incredible painting of George Floyd. So
I saw a picture of it. It's really something else.
Did you see it? It's something else. And he also just did a Louis Armstrong photo that I believe is over either at the Fulton Market or one of the jazz showcases. Has been really, really extraordinary. So he's painting he does a lot of these paintings of great artists with another guy named Previn. And you could see them all. I mean, you could just stop at his studio, and
I'm going to do that. I'll make a little movie.
Yeah, you should. Absolutely.
Okay. Lynn Orman, this has been great. Thank you for filling us in and getting us some musical talent. And hopefully we can get, who knows who you'll bring in next week on the show.
Well, I know. You know what? If anybody wants to come hang out with me on Monday, the 21st, I'm going to be at a place called Angelo's for a band that I really love called the Wind Gypsies. I'm going to be celebrating my birthday. So,
I'm coming.
Will you come?
Forget Monday Night Football. I'm coming to your birthday party. Okay.
Thanks, Michael.
You are, send Hal any pictures you have that you want him to throw on this for the video version. I want to thank everybody who helps this show. Josie Staller and all the people over there at WLUW, Katie Hogan, Lynn Orman Weiss, Tom Clark, Emilio Davis, and Hal James. And of course, our guests today, David Orr, Maria Hadden, and Lynn Orman. And we will take you out with a little bit of music by Wynn Knoll. And we'll be back next week. And we have Dick Simpson, a former alderman, a professor, a guy who's very sharp on the politics, talking to us more about elections, politics, the mood of the country. Stay tuned. The next show will be coming up, whatever it may be. I think it's going to be the Gospel Hour. And that's if you're listening on the radio. And for the rest of you, we'll see you next week. You can always see this version of Live from the Heartland and many others at youtube.com/heartlandmedia/videos. Do good in the world. The world needs all the good that you do, that I do, that Lynn does, that Hal does, and all we do together. All power to the people.
Power to the people.